What in the world is going on? You know, there's things that make sense where you're like, yeah, I could see that happening. Or things that might seem a little far fetched, but you're like, yeah, I could still see that happening. And then things that you weren't even thinking of, or straight up said, nah, that wouldn't make sense. And it's the last thing that happens. Things that you're thinking, that doesn't make sense, that'll never happen. Those are the things that happen. All right. All right. Gather myself here. First things first, Golden Blue Dude has hit 9,000 subscribers. And I've gotten a lot of congratulations from you, the viewers, and you, the subscribers, but no, thank you. You're the ones that hit the subscribe button. You're the ones that have grown this channel. So I actually thank you for supporting the channel. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. We had a goal of getting to 10,000 by the end of the year, but now we're trying to get to 10,000 by kickoff of the Backyard Brawl. I think we can do it if we can keep up the momentum. 10,000 subscribers by kickoff of the Backyard Brawl. Cool thing about that is I'm going to be at the Backyard Brawl. This could be a perfect storm, guys. Hitting 10,000 subscribers and doing a live show at the Backyard Brawl. This could be a perfect storm of something special happening for Golden Blue Dude. And so I gotta think of something great to do for that live show. Anyways, like I try to say at the beginning of every live show, if you haven't, please hit the like button. It's not a pat on the shoulder for Golden Blue Dude, not at all. It helps the video hit the YouTube algorithm. And whenever that happens, the video gets suggested more and more viewers come and watch and hit the like button and comment. And that's what helps the video grow. That's why I suggest that. Now, if you have a comment, question, something that you want me to address personally, best way to do that is the super chat button. That is that little dollar sign that you see on your bottom right hand corner. Anything you type in that super chat, I will put on the screen. I will read it. I will say who it's from. And if it's a question, I will answer it to the best of my ability. If it's just a comment that you want me to address, I will do so. Hey, even if it's a troll attempt and you want to make fun of me, I'll still put it on the screen and read it. And it helps the show tremendously, and it helps support Golden Blue Dude financially. This is what I do full time. This is my job. I'm here to entertain you and give you the latest rumors and news from college football. So, yeah, I did remember to load the link this time. I did. I almost didn't. I was about to hit go live. I was like, what? Hold on, wait a minute. I'm missing something. What am I missing? And I actually thought of it this time. So yeah, if you want to join the show, this is a call-in show, but the way we do a call-in is not through phone numbers. We do it through StreamYard. I put the link in the comment section there at the top. All you do is hit that link and it'll bring you into the studio. If you don't want to be on camera, that's perfectly fine. You can turn your camera off. It's pretty much the same way as a phone call. You're just doing it over the internet and not over, dialing numbers in a phone line, something like that. So you want to join the show? I'll put it in again, but I did put it at the top of the comment section. StreamYard link. That's how you join. We have some regulars that like to pop on, but we've had some different guests to show up. So that's always awesome to see new faces. Michael Loger, thank you for the $1.99 donation. He says, congratulations on the 9,000. I appreciate that. But like I said at the beginning, it's actually thank you. People like you are the ones that hit the subscribe button, and that's how you get to 9,000. I can't subscribe to myself. I can't, I just do videos, put them out, and people seem to like them. So I'm happy about that. But today we want to talk about the Big 12. A lot of stuff being said about the Big 12. It all started back whenever USC and UCLA announced that they were going to the Big 10, right? And then that created more news and rumors. And then it turned into Notre Dame joining the Big 10. And then that fell through. And then, Oregon and Washington, they're panicking. they applied to the Big Ten, and that did happen. Oregon and Washington did apply to the Big Ten, but the Big Ten turned them down. So it was heard that they actually started panicking and reached out to the Big 12, but nothing has come to that. Then we heard that Arizona and Colorado, they've actually applied to the Big 12 and are expected to get accepted. I've heard that from multiple sources. Not sure the timing. They said to expect it sometime this week, so I'll keep my eyes out for that. But for sure, Arizona and Colorado have applied to the Big 12, and they're expected to join. Then I heard that could be delayed depending on Oregon and Washington. They're going to join Colorado, and the biggest thing is Colorado and Arizona are joining the Big 12. It's just the timing getting figured out, and Oregon and Washington sticking their nose in that business and maybe delaying it. I don't know. But today, I've heard some completely different news. First thing is, I heard that officials from Stanford and Cal were seen in Dallas. Dallas, the headquarters of the Big 12. That's a big deal. Now I'm starting to hear that they're going to apply to the Big 12 for membership, and the Big 12 is expected to accept them. A lot of people are like, including myself, I'm like, really? Like over Oregon and Washington and Arizona and Colorado? Well, maybe not over Oregon and Washington. Maybe those two haven't applied, but over Colorado and Arizona. But the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. Let me get to Martin 77 donation. I appreciate that, buddy. The $4.99 donation says USC winning the Pac-12 in Lincoln Riley's first year at head coach. I do. I don't think they're going to get to the playoffs, though. I think that's a couple years away. But I think their schedule sets up to where they can have a 10-win season. Like, bank it, 10-win season. And then, if the ball bounces the right way and they have a little bit of luck involved, maybe they can get past that. But I think USC is headed towards the 10-win season. The only thing that you're not going to like as far as my prediction for USC is I do think they lose to UCLA. I think UCLA is going to be a really good team. Not a lot of people are talking about them. Chip Kelly has built a pretty good brand at UCLA. It's not like they had a terrible season last year. The Bruins went 8-4 last year, including beating USC. I think that happens again. Maybe we could see, a rematch of UCLA and USC, and then USC gets the rematch win, something like that. But during the regular season, I do think USC will lose to UCLA, and then perhaps get the revenge win over them in the Pac-12 championship and get to a New Year's Six bowl. But yeah, that's coming from a 4-8 to a New Year's Six bowl. That's a great turnaround for USC. So that's what I think is in the future of USC. How they do in the Big Ten, not sure. It will be an adjustment period because it's tougher for them. Number one, going from the West Coast to the East Coast is tougher than going from the East to the West because of the time change. When you go from East to West, you're gaining hours. When you go from West to East, you're losing hours. So it's tougher on that. And it's not like there's a nice patch with them, so they'll have a pod. No, it's just them and UCLA. Most of their road games are going to be at a different time zone. I'm sure the Big Ten is going to schedule it to where, they only play like one extremely East team, like a Maryland or Rutgers or Michigan or whoever out of the East one time a year on the road, something like that. So it's going to be a big adjustment. I'm not sure how that's going to pan out as far as their first few years. I think eventually they'll adjust and they'll have success, but it might be rough for USC in those first couple of years. But as far as the Big 12 is concerned, they are actively trying to get a footprint in the state of California. I'm not sure if Stanford and Cal have actually applied to the Big 12, but from what I've heard, officials, including the chancellor from Cal, was seen in Dallas. That means they are definitely talking They are definitely conversing, trying to figure out, what their schedule would look like, what the revenue would look like, because the bottom line is the revenue for the Pac-12 is expected to take a significant dip, as is just losing UCLA and USC and everybody else staying. The TV revenue is expected to drop to $30 million per team. And on top of that, Oregon and Washington are actually holding the Pac-12 hostage right now. What I mean by that is they're wanting double the revenue of everybody else in the Pac-12. So if you're looking at $30 million per team, then that means that Oregon and Washington are asking for $45 million, and everybody else can have $15 million. And everybody else is like, oh, hell no, 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 no. We are going to look at options if that's the case, because that is bull crap. And that's exactly what's happening. And if you've been watching my videos, one of the teams that's in trouble is Cal, along with Oregon State and Washington State. So if they, kind of partner with Stanford and go into the Big 12 and say, hey, we might not be the biggest brand, but we're going to give you a footprint in the state of California. Stanford, kind of bringing Cal along. Stanford's the brand. Stanford is one of the biggest brands remaining. They're right up there with Washington and Oregon. Go look up coaching salaries. David Shaw, the coach for Stanford, is number, I think, 9, either 8 or 9. $9 million a year. Stanford has money. Personally, I think that if Stanford wanted to go independent like Notre Dame, they would survive. I think they would be able to find a TV deal, make money. They wouldn't have to make Notre Dame money because they already have their endowments. Is, my gosh, people don't understand Stanford. Stanford is one of the richest schools in the entire nation. They could survive strictly on endowment, but they want their football brand to stay relevant. Okay, this is for Stanford. This is not necessarily about money. I mean, that helps. It's kind of icing on the cake, whatever you want to call it. But they, money-wise, they're fine. But they want their football program, to stay relevant and compete at the highest level and at least have a shot at a national championship. Because what they're looking at is the Pac-12 getting picked apart and the leftovers having to either go independent or merge or join with the Mountain West. So that's not acceptable in the eyes of Stanford. No. We are not going to do that. We have options. The biggest question that I would have, I'm guessing, here's my guess as far as the Big Ten goes. I do think that the Big Ten was interested in Stanford, okay? But I think they were wanting to bring Stanford in a package deal with Notre Dame. Well, what we've heard recently about Notre Dame is they want to stay independent as long as they can draw $75 million a year. Them saying no to the Big Ten tells me that they're working on it, that it seems likely that they will be able to get that payout of $75 million and stay independent. So that means that Stanford's not going to go to the Big Ten. That would be their first choice, the Big Ten. But Notre Dame staying independent means no package for Stanford. Their second option, apparently, is looking into the Big 12. Have you heard about all that as far as Stanford and Cal? Number one, officials from those two universities being seen in Dallas, and number two, them actually being interested in the Big 12.
Yeah, I've heard the same stories, same rumors, but honestly, having people in Dallas is not that big a deal. It's Dallas. I mean, people go to Dallas all the time, so I wouldn't really buy into that. But
what would those presidents from a university or universities in the state of California, what would they be doing, especially this time of year? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the time of year where you're starting to focus on your football program. What's it going to look like? What is our team going to look like? Who's going to start? Who makes the cut? All that stuff. So really the only reason that I said that is where they're at, who they represent, and the time of year that they were seen there.
If it wasn't for the fact that media days are right now or coming up this week, then I would be I would say nothing about it. But
Right.
that's a good point. I mean, it's right before media days. Why would they be in Dallas? Yeah, I mean, it could be some smoke there, but I think that there would be in Dallas. I think Cal Berkeley would be there because this is kind of a last hope for them. I mean,
Yeah.
they need a bailout. They need a lifeline. So they're desperate. I think Stanford is, it's a brand, it's a name, it's academics,
Well,
so
there's another thing though that a lot of people aren't seeing.
mm,
If you notice, UCLA and USC joined the Big Ten together. Those two are
yeah,
connected, very, very connected. Cal and Stanford are connected in the same way.
yeah.
So if one is interested in something, the other is going to be interested. That's why
Well,
Cal versus Stanford is called the game. It's their biggest rivalry. It's the biggest game. I mean, some of the craziest plays, like the band on the field, even if you
yeah,
weren't alive, you've seen clips of it. That is iconic. John Elway, game-winning touchdown pass against Cal, etched in history, stuff like that. So
well, I
they're
think,
linked at the hip. So
I,
if one goes, they're both going to go. If Cal is like, hey, we're desperate, Pac-12 is going down, you may be okay because of your brand, but, we're going to be interested in the Big 12. Can you come with us? Stanford would probably be like, well, if that keeps us together, that's not that far out of the way. Might not be a bad gig.
yeah, I think that Stanford looks at Cal as more of a little brother
Yeah,
tag along, and Cal is the one that's basically saying, "Hey, we're a package deal."
yeah,
And I think, I mean, Stanford, and other people have talked about it everywhere else. Stanford could go on its own and actually make an attempt.
yep,
And I don't think they would want to do that because of all the other sports. And that thing. See, they're really successful in the Olympic sports and all the other stuff,
yeah.
much more than football. So, maybe they go independent on football and they are fine being in the Mountain West with the rest of them. So I think Stanford has options. That's the thing. Cal has no options. Cal
Absolutely.
has to hitch their wagon to Stanford. And if Stanford's going to the Big 12, Cal wants to be, dragged along, so to speak, as a little brother. But I think, what's interesting, somebody was talking about how ESPN and Fox, they kind of need this West Coast. They need some West Coast inventory, and so the Pac-12 may not die. Blah blah blah. But I was thinking about this weekend. What really makes sense? Each one of those guys doesn't want more than one or two games a week in the West Coast in the Pacific time zone, and
Right.
so it actually makes a lot of sense that the Big Ten only took two and maybe the Big 12 will only take two on the far west and take some mountain, but nobody's interested in the Pac 12 because it's all mountain and Pacific. And that's the problem. You get a whole conference of those late kickoffs. It didn't work. So I think Fox and ESPN and the rest of them would really like to see the Pac-12 broken apart into three or
Oh,
four
absolutely.
conferences so that
Yeah.
they've got East Coast time, Central, really want the Central time, and then just one, maybe two games out west. But that's it.
Right.
We don't want 7 or 8 kickoffs out west. We just want one or two. So
Right.
I
What's
think,
the one consistent thing that I've been saying about the Pac-12 as far as teams leaving? The three teams that would be screwed would be Oregon State, Washington State, and Cal.
yeah,
Right? Stanford's brand is fine. So what
yeah,
this tells me today is that the Big 12 sees value in having a footprint in the state of California. I would say even if Stanford doesn't come with Cal, that still adds value because they would gain a footprint in the state of California. Maybe they could actually bring in a Utah and Cal or an Arizona State and Cal. And this might actually be bad news for Arizona State. Here's why.
yeah,
So we already know that Arizona and Colorado have applied to the Big 12. I'm sorry, people. If you don't agree, you're wrong. They have applied. That's a fact. Now, the timing as far as when they get accepted, I don't know all that. So the Big 12 is okay with Arizona and Colorado. Of course, if Washington and Oregon were to apply, they would definitely get accepted.
yeah,
Okay. Now, Cal adds a footprint in the state of California, right? Then it comes down to who has the better brand, Utah or Arizona State. Now, the Big 12 already has a footprint in the state of Utah with BYU, right? But
Yeah.
they would already have a footprint in the state of Arizona as well. I think Utah's brand would be worth more than Arizona State. This could be bad news for the Sun Devils.
Well, I actually think what could be happening right now is, as you said, Colorado and Arizona are on the table, really. And I think they're waiting for the Big 12 to say yes.
Right.
And the Big 12 is looking out further west at Oregon and Washington and saying, hey, who's interested? I think the Stanford thing's interesting. I think there's a high probability that the Big 12 will take 5 teams and an odd number. But but that doesn't matter anymore with divisions being gone and pods and all that. But I could see this happening where it's Arizona and Colorado first, and then we get Washington. Washington is actually being a realist, and Oregon is being a prima donna.
You're right.
And so I could see Washington going, and then when that happens, then Oregon will wake up. And
exactly.
We got nobody left. So then Stanford could be the 5th. And I'd welcome that. I think that would be good because it sweetens the deal for the Big 12 to try and make a scheduling agreement with Notre Dame. It gives you 3 teams out there in the Pacific that are all kind of, they're all good academically and other things. And then we got 3 in the Mountain and 3 in the Pacific. We'd have BYU, Arizona, Colorado, and then we'd have 3 states, California, Oregon, and Washington with Stanford.
Absolutely.
So I could see that. I think that'd be compelling and interesting.
Yeah. Now, what this guy said, what Vanity Rose said in his super chat, which I appreciate the $5 donation, buddy. I was actually about to hit on this. Right. So he says Cal and Stanford would give you control of the number 6 media market in the U.S. and a footprint in California for recruiting. That's what I was attempting to do earlier in the show whenever I was explaining how they're linked like that. And I know Stanford is the stronger brand, but that's a massive, massive TV market out there. And if you get both of those teams, it's locked down. So there's a lot of upside to this for the Big 12. And it benefits both sides. So if you try to say, well, it benefits that side, but not that side, in this case, it's like, you know what? Actually, it benefits both sides pretty well. So the Big 12 is gaining a good size, well, not just gaining, but locking down a good size media market, but also getting a footprint in the state of California. And then on the other side, they're getting out of a sinking ship and going on to a conference that's gaining footing. The Big 12 has turned into a dead man walking conference into they could possibly be that 3rd conference. If they gain all the teams that you mentioned, I think they could renegotiate to where you could be looking at $70 million a team.
Yeah, it really depends on the partner. I think Fox would put up money just to lock out ESPN. And I don't think ESPN – I think ESPN would rather try to keep the ACC together and just be all East Coast. And I think they'd be okay with that,
Yeah.
But I don't – I think Fox is probably the one that would be interested in locking out ESPN. I don't think we'll see a split, in other words. I don't think we're going to see Fox and ESPN split the Big 12 again. I could see Fox partnering with NBC or CBS or all 3 of them. But
you know what else this does? This puts ESPN and the ACC in a weird position because
it does.
The grant of rights for the ACC is pretty strong. I mean, one team would have to pay out the nose to leave. I think they said like somewhere around $500 million. Plus, you're giving up your TV rights for a decade. You can't make money for a decade. That's insane. So the lawyers need to figure that out if they want to rearrange that. But, with all this going on, ESPN might be like, maybe it's just better if we cut our losses and just make sure the ACC is locked in until 2036. And then we can think about moving people around or go halfway. We'll go another 4 years in the current grant of rights, and then we'll renegotiate, because this puts stress on ESPN and makes them nervous, because they're like, man, they're going to, if they get all those teams, they could renegotiate a really good TV deal with Fox, our competitor.
Mm-hmm.
And if we break these grant of rights and we can't match that money, some of our teams might go to the Big 12. And that's exactly what the Big 12 would want, because they need to balance it out. This is great for the Big 12 for them to go after these teams out of the Pac 12. But for the teams that are on the east side, not so much. Sergeant Pickles 13, thank you for the $5 donation, says UW, talking about Washington, are realistic with the situation, but still small chance for the Big 10 in 2026. Yes, I agree with that. I don't mind the Big 12 move, but hard to commit with $100 million, even a possibility. And that's why I said what I said before. If gaining these brands would give the Big 12 leverage to renegotiate and approach that 80 million mark. I mean, I know 20 million is still a good chunk, but that's a lot of money. And the Big 12 could gain even more clout and possibly renegotiate sooner rather than later to approach that 100 million, especially if they attract ACC. It's all about the steps you do now. You need to make sure you're setting yourself up in the future. I even approach my channel the same way. You don't make decisions just to make decisions. You try to look in the future and be like, all right, how do we set ourselves up to where way up here, we're in the best position possible, you know? So it looks like the Big 12 is thinking ahead to where they can try to set themselves up to gain some teams on the east side as well. Yeah. And maybe grab a media deal that does perhaps, you know, approach those Big 10 SEC deals.
Well, I think there's potentially should be two stages here. I think the question is this next stage going to be 3 power conferences, or is it going to be 4 power conferences? And if but the thing is, either way, the Pac-12's out. I mean, I hate to say it, it's a power conference. It's over for them. So with the reason I say Washington is being realistic is Washington is looking at NIL and transfer portal and realizing we cannot afford to drop down, because you probably heard the rumors that the numbers that ESPN floated out there are terrible for the new Pac-12. And I mean, I think
around 30 million. That's if everybody stays.
If everybody's exactly. And I mean, you know, you lose Colorado and that takes a little chunk, but boy, you lose Washington and it's over. But
it's worse than that. It's worse than that, because I said at the beginning of this video, Oregon and Washington are actually holding the Pac-12 hostage. They want double the revenue of everybody else. So if you do the math, 30 million a team, if they want double, then they're asking for 45 million. Everybody else gets 15 million.
Well, and we know that's really led by Oregon. It's really not so much Washington. Washington will be happy with it, but here's the thing: even if they got 45 million, you're probably on par or just below the new Big 12, because the new Big 12 numbers are coming out at 50 to 55, you know, somewhere in that range, and that's as we are now. So if we could, you know, so I think Washington's looking at that and saying, look, and the worst thing is, let's say Washington and Oregon get a double share. Well, now you reduced everybody down to Mountain West levels.
Yep.
They're gone. You now you're going to be the only 2 guys left. You know.
Think about this, and I actually have a video ready to go. I just haven't put it out yet, talking about Utah. And this is one of the things that I say in the video. Utah could potentially be shut out of the Big 12. Pac-12 goes under, and they would have to go back to the Group of 5 conference that they jumped to the Pac-12. You talk about regretting a decision. That would be one of the biggest decisions they could ever regret. They would probably be like, you know, hindsight being 2020, why didn't we look somewhere else? We thought the Pac-12 was solid. You know, they were talking a big game. The numbers look good, and here we are now.
Last summer, they could have jumped to the Big 12 in a heartbeat, BYU, and we would have done that instead of Houston in a heartbeat.
And that was one of the biggest problems for the Pac-12 too, was turning down BYU. I think that was That was a backbreaking bad decision by the Pac-12. And I know the argument is BYU didn't fit in culturally, religiously, politically, all that stuff. I understand that, but this is about survival.
Yeah.
And I understand that BYU is a pain in the rear end to schedule, especially basketball games, because they don't play on Sunday. But they bring value, and I think it would have helped save the Pac-12. Even if USC and UCLA still would have went to the Big Ten, you add BYU to everybody else that's still in the Pac-12 now, and they're in a better position.
Well, I think if they had taken BYU and, they probably could have fished around and tried to get Texas Tech, which, would be weird, but they could have fished around for some Big 12 last summer. Last summer, if they had struck while the iron was hot, they probably could have gotten 4 teams. They could have gotten BYU, Iowa State, Kansas State, and called it a day. And then you got to wonder, would USC and UCLA leave? Because that would have boosted the numbers for the Pac-12 considerably. I don't know. It's all hindsight. But the point is, I think that right now, I'm looking at, I hope and pray that the Big 12 doesn't take more than 5, max 5. Max. I would rather be 3 or 4, but maximum of 5, because then we're going to be at like 22 or 24 teams when the ACC folds, which is probably going to happen sometime. We don't know when, but it'll happen. It may be that they get 8 teams to leave, and then that's all you need. You need 8 to vote to dissolve, and then there is no grant of rights. So if you can get that.
That's the thing, too. That's another option that people don't realize.
Oh, you got another super chat there.
Conqueror 2001, thank you for the $5 donation. Says, do you believe that Stanford and Cal are using the Big 12 as leverage to get into the Big 10? If you would have taken out Stanford and Cal and inserted Oregon and Washington, I probably would have said yes. But Stanford and Cal, no. Because the way I explained it earlier was, I do believe that the Big Ten was interested in Stanford as a package deal with Notre Dame. Okay? I do believe that.
Yeah.
But what we heard earlier this week was that Notre Dame wants to stay independent as long as they can get $75 million a year payout. So Notre Dame staying independent takes Stanford out of that equation. They're not going to take Stanford and somebody else. It was going to be Stanford and Notre Dame. So, no, I don't think this is leverage. I think this is them trying to save their skin, because if the Pac-12 goes down, honestly, this is more about Cal saving their own skin, because I think Stanford would be fine going independent. Probably not quite the numbers as Notre Dame, but seriously, I think they could pull $50 million a year somehow. Whether it's maybe an affiliation with Notre Dame through NBC, something like that, or maybe Fox would, piggyback them off the Big 12, something like that. Either way, I think they would be fine independent. It's Cal that really, really needs this, and Stanford's like, we'll look into it. We'll see how doable this is, but we're not promising anything, something like that.
I think you hit on something there, which I have heard somebody else mention, was what if Notre Dame draws Stanford into their independent contract with NBC? And now NBC has 2 independent schools of value, and then NBC only needs very little shoulder programming. And so, I could see that happen. And again, Stanford, like we said, doesn't need the money. They've got plenty of money, but money helps. They won't turn it away, of course.
Right.
No, I think that'd be fascinating. One thing about Notre Dame, going back to that, a lot of people don't realize when they go play on the road at ACC games, they get paid by the ACC according to the ACC contract.
Right.
So for them to stay with the ACC means that they may get, a $75 million deal from NBC, but the money they were going to get from the ACC is now pretty bad. And if they reschedule with a different conference just for the scheduling alliance or whatever you want to call it, and it's the Big 12 or the Big 10 or the SEC or anybody else, their away games now double, and that matters. That matters a lot because it's almost half of their season right there.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And it's just a bunch of little things that you don't think of until you break it down. Notre Dame is a huge factor in this. If Notre Dame would agree to go to the Big Ten, then we wouldn't even be talking about Stanford today. It would be Notre Dame and Stanford to the Big Ten. And then, so them backing out, that made Oregon and Washington apply to the Big Ten, and they were flat turned down. So a lot of people are like, I'm seeing this question a lot. Golden Blue, do you think that Oregon and Washington are going to stay in the Pac-12 and ride it out till the very end and then hope for an opening in the Big Ten? Well, if you've already been turned down, I don't know if that's a good risk. I'm not saying that eventually they wouldn't get into the Big Ten, but what if there's a huge gap to where the Pac-12 dissolves? They decided to not join the Big 12, and they have to do a Mountain West schedule. They have to be a Mountain West member. They do not want that on their resume. They would rather piggyback off the Big 12, and then in the future, if the Big 10 opens the door, say we'll jump to the Big 10, rather than piggyback off the Mountain West. That's just my opinion. I think if the Big 10 makes it clear that they are not going to accept Oregon and Washington in the next 2 years, Oregon and Washington will be in the Big 12.
Yeah, I think what Oregon and Washington might be thinking is, that Big 12 offer is always there. And, so if the Big 12 all of a sudden announced that they were taking Stanford, that would make them sweat, because then they may think, one of us just lost our spot, which could be true.
Especially if they've already decided to take Colorado and Arizona.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You take Colorado, Arizona, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere you take Stanford.
Yeah.
I think
from the news today, the two teams that need to be sweating the most, Arizona State and Utah. Forget Oregon State and Washington State. They know that their days are numbered. I honestly think you're looking at future Mountain West members with Oregon State and Washington State.
I feel bad for them.
It's sad. It sucks. They're better than that, but that's just my opinion. So with what we're hearing today, this should make Arizona State and Utah sweat, because the Big 12 already has the TV market in Utah. They're going after the TV market in the state of Arizona. So then it's like, which one are we going to double down on if they get one of these California schools?
Arizona State is so disappointing in all this, because they could be, they could be accepted overnight, and but they're being weird. They're thinking they're all that, and look, it's a good school and a good place and blah, blah, blah. But man, you're not Oregon, and you're certainly not USC. So
no, you're not even close.
Trying to dictate terms or think that you're the linchpin that's going to keep the whole Pac-12 together is just delusional.
I've always said this about driving. Yes, guys, I'm about to connect driving a car with football. I've always said this about driving, as far as why there's so many crashes and wrecks. I think the number one reason is because of indecisiveness, because you will see. What I mean by that is you will see, let's say you're yielding onto the interstate, right? Somebody can't make up their mind. They start slowing down. So you're like, all right, I'm going to keep going. And then they speed up into your – same thing with the stop sign. They'll stop, hesitate, and then they'll wait till somebody comes and they'll pull out. Hesitation causes issues, and that's what's going on with Arizona State. They're going to make a bad decision simply because of hesitating. Hesitating is a bad decision. A lot of people don't realize that. When you hesitate, you're making a bad decision by hesitating. Either do it or don't do it. That's now, whether it's the right decision to do it or don't do it, you just have to let it play out. But hesitating doesn't help anything.
Yeah, it's a lack of vision, really.
Right.
And I agree with you there. It's kind of, and there's delusional aspirations that are just not working out for them. So yeah, I always wanted Arizona State to be part of the Big 12, just because I thought the potential to be the Florida State of the Southwest is there. But they lack leadership, and this shows it. This absolutely shows it. If you had good leadership, you would be submitting your application before Arizona, because you might have a leg up on them. Now you're behind the eight ball, and the
one thing that really irritates me that I'm still hearing is the whole argument where why would these teams go to the Big 12? They don't fit academically. They don't fit politically, religious. I'm like, look around. This isn't about do they fit, culturally or whatever. This is about survival. So if it's a way for them to survive and keep making money and keep being relevant in today's college football, they're going to take it. So anybody that keeps putting out that argument is delusional. I mean, even Stanford to the Big 12 is more likely now than it was 5 years ago, because those reasons why they would never join are out the window. Any reason for any of those Pac-12 teams to not join any other conference besides the Pac-12 is out the window. Cyclone Steve, thank you for the $2 donation, says if the Big 12's final goal to be gotcha. If the Big 12's final goal to be a 20 or 2014 conference. That's a good question, actually. I don't know what their ultimate goal is. I don't know what the ultimate goal for any of these conferences is. I think numbers isn't the ultimate goal. I think they just want to make sure they bring in the best brands possible. So if it means that they stop at 20 and nobody outside of those 20 teams brings any more value. So let's say they get to 20 teams, right? And the only way the Big 12 can get to 24 teams is if they take, I don't know, Washington State, Oregon State, Boise State, and maybe a San Diego State, something like that. Sure, those teams are fine, but they don't bring enough value for them to go from 20 to 24 teams. So it's whatever number that they're comfortable with where teams keep bringing value, okay? There's still 2 teams out there that bring value. That gets us to 20. Is there any more teams? None? All right, we're done. But, nope, there's 2 more. We'll get to 22. There's 2 more, 24. It's how many teams are left that actually brings value to the table. Big 12 isn't going to be adding teams just to be adding teams. Just like the SEC and just like the Big 10. They're not going to be adding teams just to be adding teams. You have to bring in teams that move the needle. Quick reminder, just like I do at the beginning of the show, if you haven't, please hit the thumbs up. We have about 300 watching right now. Hitting the thumbs up helps the video hit the YouTube algorithm. And whenever the video hits the YouTube algorithm, it gets suggested more and more people click on it and watch it. And boom, that's how your audience grows. So that tells me that my viewers have been hitting the like button because the video keeps growing and growing. So all you new people, if you will, please hit the like button, and we would greatly appreciate it. And if you're not subscribed to Golden Bluetooth, this channel, if you're a college football fan, please hit the subscribe button. We're actually trying to get to 10,000 subscribers by the kickoff of the Backyard Brawl. Yes. Now, if you're not a college football fan, don't do it. You won't like it. You'll hate it, actually. This is a college football channel. So on Sunday, which was yesterday, I get my days mixed up, we hit 9,000. And today I looked, and we've already gained 60 today. I think we're at 9,000 and hold on, let me check real quick, guys. We are at 9,066. So we've had a pretty good sub day today so far. So yeah, if you're a college football fan, this is the channel. And the Patreon page, this is the time of year. If you are going to join the Patreon page, this is the time of year to do it, because whenever the regular season rolls around, I have all my Patreons vote on what college football game I'm going to live stream and that we're all going to watch together, me and my Patreons. Y'all vote and we watch it together. And the Patreons get to participate in the score prediction contest. So if you're a $5 Patreon, you get 5 guesses every week as to what the score is going to be on the game that I pick. And whoever comes closest wins $20, and it's every week. It's not you can win $20 and you're done. If you're good at it, you can win $20 as many times as you want. So just wanted to throw that out there. But today it's more about the Big 12. And the title that I put out on the video today was the Big 12 stomping out the Pac-12. And that's what it looks like it's doing. Now, my question is, are they going to make it quick? Are they going to make it a sweeping stomping out, or is this going to be in phases? What do you think?
Good question. I think it's probably going to happen in at least 2 stages. The first two, as we talked about, most likely Arizona, Colorado. And then Lord knows. I mean, it could be one announcement of Stanford. It could be double announcement of Oregon and Washington. I could see it go, one at a time after that. But I think the first thing that happens is two happen at once. And that'll be Arizona, Colorado. I mean, it could be any one of the four, but I think it's probably those two. And unfortunately, I got to bounce. I'm sorry I had to jump off earlier. But just to answer that question, I hope we're at 20 and not 24. I feel like 24 is just a little bit unwieldy. But anyway, I got to go. Catch you later, man.
All right. Appreciate you, bud. And another thing that this does that people don't realize is this is great news for the Mountain West. In fact, I've seen tweets and stuff all over social media suggesting that the Mountain West is actually expecting. They are making decisions right now. The Mountain West is making decisions right now in anticipation that the Pac-12 is either going to dissolve or be severely weakened. They are preparing themselves to, invite those teams, and they expect those remaining teams to join the Mountain West. So this is a big win for the Mountain West. Who knows? Maybe the Mountain West could negotiate at least a better TV deal than what they have now. I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to what any of the Power 5 conferences have. But for a Group of 5 conference, if they could negotiate a TV deal to where all their teams are making $15 million a year, that would be huge. That would be massive. Now, for us fans of teams that are in Power 5 conferences, that would be like horrible, terrible, because even with the ACC, they're still over $35 million a year. That's over $20 million a year than $15 million. But for a Group of 5 conference, $15 million a year is absolutely amazing. It's amazing. So they are preparing themselves. Excuse me, I just ate lunch. They're preparing themselves for the Pac-12 to dissolve, get picked apart, severely weakened, and the remaining Pac-12 teams be desperate to be part of some type of conference. Because I don't see Oregon State, Washington State, or Cal going independent. And that's why we're seeing the news today of Cal and Stanford reaching out to the Big 12. Stanford doesn't necessarily need to join the Big 12. Cal does. And Cal gives the Big 12 a footprint in the state of California. And I know the biggest pushback, and I've seen it in the chat numerous times, that, that doesn't make sense. Cal and Stanford in the Big 12 doesn't make sense. They don't fit, religiously, culturally, politically, geographically, academically, whatever. That doesn't matter. Self-preservation blows that out. So that doesn't matter. You have to get past that part. You have to stop thinking that, because that's not how it goes. Thank you, Cal A, for the $5 donation. Says Utah sells out every home game and have for multiple years. CU, meaning Colorado, can't even get to half capacity. I know the Denver market is IRG, but no one watches. Yes, and I understand that completely. That's why I'm actually confused about this situation as far as the Big 12 taking Colorado and Arizona over, say, like a Utah and Arizona State. I agree with you. I think Utah belongs in the Big 12. I think they fit in the Big 12. You have the Holy War, total TV rights if they join the Big 12, and I think that would bring in numbers. Utah sells out their stadium consistently. They just had a great year. Their brand is at an all-time high, and people completely forget that Utah has not been a Power 5 team for a very long time. They've only been a Power 5 team for a short amount of time, like 10 years, something. I don't know the exact amount of years, but 10, 15 years, something like that. And yet they're having success at a high level. They just won the Pac-12. They sell out consistently over and over and over. They have, in my opinion, one of the best college football coaches in the entire nation in Kyle Whittingham. So, yes, I agree with you. I'm just going by what I'm hearing. I don't know why they would choose those two teams over Utah, but that's what I'm hearing. Maybe there's something that we don't know about as far as possibly Utah going to the Big Ten. I don't know. That's just a guess. That's not a prediction. That's not me calling it. Nothing like that. That would be a guess because it makes total sense, Utah being in the Big 12. You already got BYU in there. That's a great rivalry. That's not that far of a stretch. They fit geographically, and their cultural, political, religious, whatever views fit in more than, say, a Cal, a Stanford, and an Arizona. I mean, there's still some difference there, but they fit in better than some of those teams. So I'm a bit confused why they would choose Colorado and Arizona over Utah. So my guess would be maybe the Big Ten is interested. I don't know. That's just a guess. That is just a guess because otherwise it really doesn't make sense. I would think that Utah is a better brand than both of them. Colorado can't sell out a home game in football to save their lives. Arizona is dreadful in football. Now, when Arizona is good, they can sell out their stadium. But right now, they're dreadful. So I honestly couldn't answer that question as far as why they would choose those two. Other than maybe how about this? Maybe the Big 12 is looking at this like, all right, so Utah is at their climax, right? What if they can't keep at that top level when they join the Big 12? So it's almost like buy low, sell high. You know what I'm saying? Since Colorado and Arizona are at a low, maybe the Big 12's thinking, you buy low. We've seen that they can have success in the past. And when they do have success in the past, they've made a lot of money for the Pac-12. That's the only theory that I could put out there. The whole buy low and sell high theory. I don't know. The two biggest enigmas, in my opinion, in college football right now, as far as why either the SEC or the Big Ten or even the Big 12 haven't reached out, to my knowledge, would be Utah and Miami. I might actually do a video on that now that I think about it. That would be think about that, guys. That would be a great combo for the Big 12 if they went out and got Utah and Miami. Like that would be completely swerving everybody. And I know the grant of rights thing, that's the X factor, whatever. But my point with that is, it was rumored that the SEC is interested in Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State, and Virginia, right? So ESPN and the ACC are trying to renegotiate that TV deal to make it easier for those teams to bump up. And then maybe the ACC go out and grab some teams. Nobody's interested in Miami, not the SEC, not the Big Ten. So a complete swerve would be the Big 12 going, let's get a combo of Miami and Utah. That would be interesting. That would be, and I've talked to Miami fans about this, and they're kind of mad at the SEC right now, even though there's no official word that those four teams would ever be bumped up. Just the mere fact that it was suggested that the SEC would take Florida State over Miami, even though Florida State is a more valuable brand. And then Virginia, they are not happy about that at all. They are not. So Miami fans are like, hey, if the Big 12, if the grant of rights somehow gets figured out and the Big 12 is interested in Miami, we would be fine. We would be fine with that. We would be okay with that. Yeah. You know what? Hold on, guys. So what I'm going to do real quick, because the chat is flying today, like it is flying. And every time I put the link in the comments, it goes up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my phone and see if I can pin it real quick. That way people can just look at the pinned comment and do it that way. So well, I didn't mean to do that. Hold on, guys. Give me 1 second. That way, if somebody wants to join the channel, it's like a call-in, except you're not calling a number. So give me 1 second here. Let me get this real quick. Make sure all the let's see here. RMF. But I did remember to put it at the beginning. Usually I forget that. So I did remember. You can go back and watch the footage. All right, let's see here. Let me make sure all that's right. All right, I think that's it. Now let's see if it'll let me pin it. No, don't go into it. Pin it. Might just have to put it in the description because it's not letting me pin it. But there you go. I updated it. It's in the comment section. If you want to join the show, there's the link where it says the StreamYard link. That's how you join. And you don't have to be on camera. You can turn the camera off. Oh, Joey's got me. Joey's got me. Hey, Joe, if you want to come on, you can come as well. I saw Tim in the chat, man. I always love it when Tim comes on. If you're still in the chat, Tim, Joey just posted the StreamYard link. I just posted the StreamYard link. Come on in because the reason I like having Tim on is he's a USC fan and he can give a perspective on the Pac-12. There's a lot of things that we don't realize about the Pac-12 that he has intuition about that a lot of us wouldn't know. So, Tim Prangley, if you're in, hit me up. I see somebody trying to join, but your device is not connected. Larry, it says that it says that your mic and your cam is not connected. So, if you want to join, you got to get connected there, buddy. You don't have to show your face. You can turn your camera off, but your device does need to be connected. But yes, I would enjoy Tim Pranglin coming on if he's in the chat. I saw him earlier in the chat, but maybe he's not in here anymore. But anyways, I do think that the Big 12 is in the process of stomping out the Pac-12. I don't know if it's going to happen in phases. It could happen all at once. That's a possibility. I don't know that if that's how it's going to happen or how the timeline is going to be, but it's a definite possibility because think about it like this. So we've heard that Arizona and Colorado have applied. Their applications are on the table. The Big 12 could stamp that and accept them at any moment. Why have they not announced they are accepting Colorado and Arizona? Well, maybe they're getting other applications and they're telling those people, yes, we're going to accept you, but just like we're telling Colorado and Arizona, chill out. We want to make this a massive announcement to where we're going to bring in like 6 teams, 4 to 6 teams, something like that. So Colorado, Arizona, they've applied. They're going to be accepted, but it hasn't been announced yet. We heard today that Stanford and Cal are talking to the Big 12, so they could be on the table. And then the big linchpin would be Oregon and Washington. Maybe they're trying to wait on to see if Oregon and Washington become interested, because the bottom line is, whether you agree with them or not, Oregon and Washington, their ultimate goal is the Big Ten. The problem is they applied to the Big Ten shortly after USC and UCLA were accepted to the Big Ten. They applied almost immediately after that, but the Big Ten turned them down. So I don't know if the Big Ten is like leading them on. You know, whenever like a girl or a guy is making a person that likes them think there's a chance. They know that there's no chance and it's never going to happen, but they drag them along and make them think that they have a chance. That way they still get, they still keep getting their attention. They still keep spending money on them and buying them stuff and stuff like that. But they really know that it's never going to happen. The Big Ten could be leading Washington and Oregon on, and that's why, they're not. Well, they haven't come out and said that they're interested in the Big 12, because the Big Ten makes them think, not now, but, just stay put. Don't join any other conferences, and we'll get back with you later. We think we have an opening with you later, because that's the only thing that makes sense to me. So, and to me, that would be the only reason why they would not join the Big 12, is if the Big Ten has made them believe or think that they have a shot. All right, we have 315 watching. We do have over 100 likes, but the video would grow even more if those of you that haven't hit the like button would hit the like button. It's not a pat on the back or anything like that. When you hit the like button, it is one of those things that hits the YouTube algorithm. YouTube is this weird thing, and its algorithm is based on certain things. Commenting helps, but it mostly looks at those likes. So when you hit that like button or the thumbs down, either way, whatever, it just helps hit the algorithm, and it gets, suggested on more platforms. So those of you that have not hit the like button, please do so, and it greatly helps. I mean, we already have 315 watching, so it's we've got a big audience already. Anybody that wants to join the live show, Joey's going to post the link in the chat sporadically. I think we have Shooter coming back on. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, just some family things.
Real life, right?
Yep. It's the pain of working at home.
Yeah.
Always available.
Hey, you know what? I feel your pain on that. Especially in the summer whenever the kids are out of school. They know the drill that whenever I'm live, they don't have to stop playing. It's either go in your room and be loud or don't be loud in the living room, because my studio is actually set up in my bedroom because I have a massive bedroom and it's kind of in its own space, but it's still connected. The living room is behind me. That wall is the living room wall. So if they're running around stomping, the mic is going to catch the vibration. So I'm not telling you have to stop playing whenever I'm live. I'm saying if you want to play loud, go do it in your bedroom. Otherwise, just try to watch TV and chill. So yeah, real life. What's going on, Kenny?
Not much, buddy. I just want to say, I want to ask a request, something from you, Golden Blue Dude. Okay. When you reach 10,000 subscribers, I would like to sing "Heaven" by Kane Brown for the show, for the celebration of that.
Absolutely, dude. I like it. What made you think of that?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking and saying, that would be a heck of a celebration, and why not do it on the stage and the platform that you have in order to bring more viewers in.
I like it, man. I like it. Yeah, I see Lorenzo. Hold on, man. He pointed out something that I didn't even see. And actually, it might seem like something small, but hold on just a second here. Well, I don't know if it'll let me correct it or not. I spelled the word state wrong. I left out the word T, so... If that screws up the algorithm, I'm going to be mad. Just because I didn't spell a word right, it doesn't recognize it. That would tick me off. But hey, even if that did hold us back a little bit, we still have 300 people watching, so I still think we're doing pretty good. So what do you think about the Pac-12? Do you think they have any chance of staying alive? I guess.
No, I see it collapsing. I would
agree with that.
I see Arizona and Colorado, and then the rest follow.
Yep. Vanity Rose, thank you for the $5 donation. Says Stanford and Cal for the number 6 market. Okay. Why not San Diego State too? Okay. That's the number 26 market. Then Utah, and wait for something on the East. I would say yes if two things. Two things, okay? Number one, if Oregon and Washington say it's not happening, it's never going to happen, we're going to the Big Ten. We know we're going to the Big Ten, and we're going to ride the Pac-12 ship off a cliff, all right? That's the first thing that has to happen. The second thing that has to happen, and this is not an either-or thing. This is both of these things have to happen. The second thing is I'm not sure what value San Diego State would bring to the Big 12. So if they would raise the revenue and raise the value of the Big 12, then the combination of those two things, I would say yes. But otherwise, okay, here's the deal.
It's about money.
Yeah, it's about money. And a lot of people throw out, these group of 5 schools that are really good right now, like a Memphis, a San Diego State, a Fresno State, a Boise State, and the list goes on and on and on. You have to look up their TV market and how many fans actually watch their games. It's one thing to have a big TV market. It's another thing for those viewers in that TV market to actually watch your product. In other words, if you have, the number 26 market, right? But your watchability is like number 120. There would be no point. If there's no interest, then there's no point.
Honestly, this is what's hurting ASU is that the Cardinals are coming around. They've got their new quarterback, that kid from Oklahoma, I forget his name now, Murray, Colorado. Yeah, so San Diego State is I love the city. I love the area. I love everything about it. But the only problem is they just don't draw the numbers right now to justify, because you dilute the Big 12 by doing that. And right. we can't afford that in the Big 12. Otherwise, I'd be all on board. San Diego State was one of the teams that was highly considered last year. And a lot of people fought the idea of taking Houston rather than taking Boise State or San Diego State or Memphis. Looking back, the reason we took Houston is so that the Pac-12 would not have that opportunity, or the ACC would have that opportunity to backfill. The Big 12 guys knew that the Big 10 had to match this move by the SEC. And the most likely candidates for that were Notre Dame and USC. It's the only thing that would come close to matching taking UT and OU. And right. So that means the Pac-12 or the ACC is going to try backfill. And one of the things that was out there was Houston. It's a Texas market. It's number 3 city in the country as far as size. So anyway, I love San Diego State. I'm sick to see them not be a part of it. I think the ultimate future, 15, 20 years from now, will be an independent football-only league that will be formed outside of the NCAA and outside of the conferences. And it'll be the top 60 teams in the country will be invited to be a part of it. So San Diego State might have a shot at that time.
But see, everybody thinks I'm crazy because I say if Utah don't come, they're going to bring a Boise State in is to get that market.
Who's going to bring Boise State?
The Big
12.
Well, I don't think so, because Boise State is in that same spot. They're just not drawing the numbers right now. They got a great football product. So that part of it they got.
I understand what Kenny's saying. Because Boise State draws the entire state of Idaho, right? Now, if the entire state of Idaho was comparable to the state of Washington or
Colorado,
the state of Utah, the state of Colorado, then they would have a massive, massive argument. The problem is, even though they carry that state, it's still not a big TV market. And I am not bashing Boise State. They have an excellent football program. Their fans back them 100%. Honestly, I don't know why they're expanding from 36 to 40,000. Boise State should have at least a 50,000 seat stadium, and they would pack it out every stinking home game. Maybe even 60,000. I don't know, but 50,000 definitely. So they have the fan base. It's just the sheer numbers. I don't think they have enough viewers that would move the needle for the Big 12. And it seems crazy because, Boise State's been one of those brands that has given a lot of Power 5 brands troubles.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody hates being matched up against Boise State in those New Year's Six bowls. And whenever the BCS bowl was around, they hated that because they were the best group of 5 team. Here's where you have to separate things, okay? Yes, this is about football, but it's about football viewership, not the football product you see on the field. And that's why a lot of crap doo-doo gets thrown on West Virginia, because over the past 3 years, we haven't been all that great. That really doesn't matter, to be honest with you, because our viewership is going to be number 1 in the new Big 12, and overall, we're number 30. We are a top 30 viewership brand in the entire nation. Last year, 2 games before the end of the season, we were 4-6, right? We had to win those last 2 games to get to a bowl. That's how bad our season was. We were still number 40 in the nation in viewership in a bad, bad year. Whenever West Virginia is really good, they can crack the top 25 in viewership. And if you add in some good rivalries in there, and this is why I've talked about West Virginia to the ACC, because West Virginia does bring value to the ACC, but then there's that whole grant of rights thing and all that stuff.
Don't leave.
But the ACC might be falling apart, so it might not be even worth it.
Yeah, it's going to be the ACC is going to fold up and merge with the American, and the PAC's going to fold up and merge with the Mountain West. And the one that everybody said was going to die is really only saved by geography. Let's be honest.
Yep.
The Central Time Zone is the best thing and the fact that we have crazy football fans, honestly, that's a big part of it. You know, that's the one thing about the East Coast teams. You've got a lot of NFL teams up and down the East Coast.
Yep.
And to think that they can still pull those numbers for college as well. You know, we can do that in Texas. We got the Houston Texans, we got the Dallas Cowboys, but we got football in our blood so much that we will pack 20, 30,000 people in a high school stadium on Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how
State of Texas is huge. Quick reminder to the chat. Golden Blue Dude actually is available with podcasts now. We do podcasts. We're available on Substack. We're available on Apple Tunes. We're available on TuneIn Radio. There's one more platform that's escaping my head. I can't remember, but there's one more platform. I'll think of it later. But bottom line is Golden Blue Dude now has podcasts, so you can watch Golden Blue Dude in multiple ways. Always got to throw that out there because I do have other people that's working on that side of the ball as well, and I like to throw them some viewership as well. So y'all go check out the podcast whenever you can. Tim, yes, dude, the Pac-12 guy. This is what I've been wanting right here. Some Pac-12 input. So what do you think about all this noise about Stanford and Cal possibly wanting to join the Big 12? I know it before you say anything, I know it makes no sense, but is it feasible?
Is it feasible? I would assume anything's feasible. You know, anything's feasible. You have USC in the Big Ten, so I mean anything.
Well, the reason USC and UCLA is feasible to the Big Ten is because of numbers. So I guess the way I was trying to word that is numbers wise, is it feasible? Does it make sense for the Big 12, and does it make sense for Stanford and Cal?
Well, the one I worry about is Stanford, because I mean Stanford's his own entity. You know what I mean? I think Tony's always done a really good job at this, is explaining how important sports are. It's not that there aren't great Cal and Stanford fans, because there are. There's just as hardcore as any fan base. But the thing is the administration. Kind of like, again, a lot of people don't realize that some of these schools, it's more, their academics are, you know, believe it or not, way more important than football to some of these schools. I mean, unfortunately for USC, we went through that phase where our administration really was pushing the academic side of things, and they just, in a way, almost wanted to shy away from football, and that killed us fans. Yeah. I can see Stanford not caring and just like being like, well, whatever, we'll just be independent, or we don't. They're kind of aloof that way anyway. As
stole
far as
my thunder, man! You stole my thunder. I was about to ask you, what about Stanford Independent?
Yeah, I think that's probably. I don't know. I don't know. To be honest with you, with Stanford, whoever knows with Stanford, right? They got a tree for their mascot, for God's sake.
Well, and that's what I was.
Well, I mean, what about this?
Earlier is they make so much money that it's not necessary for them to join a conference. If they can go independent and approach, I don't know, $40 million a year, they would be fine. They would be okay with that. They want to stay relevant in football, but it's not about money for Stanford. Their endowment is mind-blowing. People, y'all need to look that up. Stanford's endowment, it might be number one, or Cal's, I don't know. I think Stanford's number one, but their endowment is so large, they are not hurting for money. They would just have to figure out, hey, can we stay competitive and have the schedule? Would teams still schedule us if we go independent? And I think the answer would be yes. I think they would be fine.
But the only way I see Stanford going with Cal to the Big 12 is as a package deal.
Yes. Yes, I would agree with that. Now, so, okay, how about this, Tim? You take Stanford out of the equation, right? I think it still makes sense to bring in Cal and maybe a Utah. I know Cal's not that great of a brand, but that still gives you a footprint in the state of California.
Yeah, and then you also have the Bay Area market. I guess at the end of the day, here's what my worry is. Okay, I've been saying this for a couple of months now, that I think there's gonna be contraction before there's gonna be more expansion at some point. At some point, some of these conferences, because again, it's not the conference commissioners making decisions. It's all about the TV deals, the TV contracts, and the executives, in my opinion, who are making the final decisions on all of this stuff.
Right.
So my worry is at what point is it going to be like, because if they're running it like a business, that they start saying, well, we really don't need a Kansas State, for instance. Like the little apple isn't the big apple when it comes to television, Right. So I mean, I worry about that kind of crap going on. They start saying, well, Indiana's a really good basketball school, but man, what if we get rid of them and pick up Washington? That would be huge for our TV contract. So I think that's where it will go. Now, so you have to ask yourself, do you think that there are schools in the Big 12 that are going to be bring in more money and be more prestigious than a Cal Berkeley? And the answer probably is that there are some schools that will be on the chopping block. Now,
but see,
is that going to happen?
See, here's where I think I'm going to throw you a curveball. I think that Notre Dame might be in the ear of Stanford and saying, hey, go there because they're going to help us.
I floated out an idea, Lenny. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, Tim. What if Notre Dame is talking to NBC about getting Stanford in that independence contract so that NBC has a contract with both Stanford and Notre Dame as independents?
And that's what I was referring to earlier as far as, Notre Dame's looking to get to $75 million. Stanford's probably not, but maybe Notre Dame, is in the ear of NBC and said, hey, they would be okay with 30 million or 40 million or whatever that number is. So it'd be much lower, but they could still go independent, and NBC would have Stanford and Notre Dame.
Right.
I wonder how that's going to work, because again, at some point with this new conference realignment, I'm wondering what scheduling is going to be like. Like teams have always made an exception for Notre Dame, obviously, because they're Notre Dame, right? So they kind of work them into the schedule. Like you notice that the USC and Stanford, we start out every year at the beginning. We play each other. Why? Because we know that Notre Dame is going to be playing when other Pac-12 schools are playing each other. Either depending on if it's a home or away game. If it's at home, it's going to be at Stanford, and if it's going to be at home, it's going to be at USC. So it'll be at the end of the year during conference play. So that's why we always start off at the beginning of the year playing each other at the very beginning of the year, and Pac-12 has made that concession. I don't know if conferences are going to make that same concession for a school like Stanford. You know what I mean? It doesn't move the needle enough for them to make that kind of a concession. You're going to do that for Notre Dame because it's big TV dollars, right? No matter who you are, if you play Notre Dame, it's going to be big money for your contract.
Well, that's what I was saying, because NBC would have Notre Dame's home games, but whenever they play Stanford or USC on the road, NBC could still keep that game as well if they take Stanford, not at the same amount of money as Notre Dame, but you're not losing any Notre Dame game whenever it comes to their rivals with Stanford and USC. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Again, I mean, I don't think that as far as Stanford, like USC has that. We're lucky because we have the LA market. Again, I said this before. I think I said yesterday, didn't I? That if it was based on fan apathy and your winning record, USC's lucky to get an invite from the Mountain West after last year. The way that it ran down with Helton.
Right.
But that's not the case. Again, it is all about money, right? That's what we're looking at. That's why we look at Utah. I think Utah's fan base is insane and great, and they pack that sucker. I think Oregon's fan base is great, and they're insane, and they pack that sucker. And they're the two, probably them and Washington. Those three are easily the three loudest stadiums. They're the smallish stadiums of 50,000, 60,000, but they're loud, and they're passionate. But do those markets move the needle? And the answer is, I would have to think that Seattle, I mean, if Seattle's a big pickup for anybody, the Washington program, because their fans are rabid, they're a team that has a national championship, in my lifetime. Do you know what I mean? And they've had great players. They have NFL quality. They have college Hall of Famers. They got pro Hall of Famers. They've got first-round draft picks. I mean, they've got the players. What you're looking at, though, with Stanford is also people have short memories. You know, the beginning of the last decade, Stanford was a power.
Yeah.
What is
Kicked our ass.
Except for Notre Dame. Those Notre Dame is just, I don't know. They're like the bottom of the barrel. But everybody else, I'm kidding, Will.
Picking on the new guy.
But see, one other thing that I see about Stanford is they're holding to their values too much, and it could hurt them. They could be left out.
But Stanford, they're left out. They're making billions, and Tony showed me this the other night. Yeah. Will knows this. Not million, billion. Big boy money. You know, their research is insane, and he showed me that Washington is even higher than Stanford when it comes to research grant money.
Yep.
Which was pretty amazing.
Yeah. That is surprising. So I want to welcome Will, the Notre Dame fan. Welcome to the Brady Bunch, as you can see. I'm guessing that you heard us talking about Notre Dame. What are your thoughts about the situation?
Listen, like, I respect the Big 12 and everything, but like, I feel like I know like the Notre Dame alumni in this Bay Area love going to those Stanford games, but like I still feel like there's a better chance that we'll go to the Big 10 with USC, Michigan State, Purdue, and Michigan than the Big 12. I mean,
you forgot Michigan State, Will. You forgot Michigan State.
Yeah, I thought I said Michigan.
For Notre Dame, I don't see them ever joining the Big 12. Not at all. No. If they join a conference, it's going to be the Big 10. If they join a conference full-time as a full member, I think it'll be the Big 10. And I know that goes against the narrative that I've been saying over the past year, but things happen and things change.
But
so you have to change your opinion based on what's going on.
I wasn't saying that Notre Dame was coming into the Big 12. I was saying their contract with NBC getting alliance with Big 12. I never said that Notre Dame was coming in. They were staying independent, but getting that extra $75 million help that the Big 12 is offering to help them with.
I mean, that could happen, but it would probably only be with Stanford and Cal, though, I feel like, if that were to happen.
The weird thing about that Notre Dame thing with the Big 12 is the way it was labeled is an affiliation as far as Notre Dame being affiliated with the Big 12, but that's actually incorrect. Basically, they're looking for an extra game for the Big 12 to piggyback off. So really, they would still be affiliated to the ACC. Yep. Notre Dame would just be giving the Big 12 an extra game that would be a Notre Dame game. Does that make sense?
No,
I mean, that's from what I understand. That's how it is.
Well, I think that original idea was just an NBC thing, and it was NBC getting Notre Dame staying with the same scheduling they've always had. But then NBC needed more content, and so NBC was going to go do something on its own with the Big 12 that had nothing to do with Notre Dame. It was just for NBC to have some more content.
Gotcha. But it's an NBC Big 12 thing.
Right.
Okay, that makes more sense. Heads up to people in the chat. If you have a question or a comment that you'd like me or one of my guests to address, Super Chat's the way to do it. It is that $sign down on your bottom right-hand corner. Anything you put in the Super Chat will be displayed on the screen as you see. If it's a question, I'll read the question and we'll answer it to the best of our abilities. If it's just a comment, I'll read it and we'll address it. And if you want to make fun of me, I'll put it up there as well. So just want to throw that out there. Jeff, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, I just wanted to say, you guys were talking about Stanford. They could go independent, and that would be okay. But the problem with them going with NBC, who is Stanford going to play? Now, the first 3 weeks, Stanford could play anybody. And later on in the year, Stanford would play Notre Dame. But the Big Ten only plays Big Ten games from October on. So does the Big 12. So does the ACC. Now, the SEC, we have one game the week before the last week in November. We play an out-of-conference game. But who is going to play Stanford in October? Who's going to play them in November? That would bring the money for NBC to want to have them on. You know, that's the problem.
Yeah.
A Boise State or a Memphis to prove their value.
Yeah, but they can.
But
but
is that
that
going to
doesn't
bring
help-
in the
It doesn't
ratings?
help NBC or the Irish in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I'm not putting
No.
down the great programs, but that's not going to bring the kind of revenue that you're going to get if you want to get a $50 million, a $75 million contract with
Right.
NBC.
So
Exactly.
I
Boise
think
ain't going to move the needle. You're going to have to get Notre Dame's schedule. You know, I mean, you could get away with a Navy once or maybe
Right.
even an Army once, but you're going to have to play Power 5 teams. And how many Power 5 teams are out there that's not in a conference that's going to be scheduled already, you know, in conference in October and November?
well,
Yeah, I think what I get what you're saying, Jeff. You're saying it's not about the interesting matchups. It's about finding a team or a fan base that's going to give you the numbers early in the year.
Well,
Right.
I think if Stanford was to go independent, they would have to find a conference similar to what Notre Dame has found with ACC, and I think Stanford could find that with the new Big 12 that would
Yep.
include Arizona and Colorado and maybe Washington, you know, and so that's a potential for Stanford to do that, and they would give 5 or 6 games a year with the Big 12. And of course, none of this would take effect until probably 26, 20, 25, 26 at the
25.
earliest. So
I say about 2024.
well,
Well, the grant of rights is in 2025, so it has to
I
be
think Stanford
2025.
wouldn't go independent until the fall of 26. That would be their first season as an independent. And
Right.
they probably would have to do for the first year or two, probably a lot of Boise States and San Jose State, you know, the you call the Battle of the Bay or something. But, you know, it would be down the road, they could start to do that with a conference like the Big 12. You're right. The Big 10's not going to do it. And I don't think the SEC would make a damn bit of sense for Stanford. The travel
No.
would be ridiculous. So, yeah, that's a thought. It's a theory. But
Maybe that could be the thing that they might be thinking about setting up with the Big 12. Hey, we're going to go independent, but we'd like to partner with you. Something like what Notre Dame does with the ACC. That would actually make sense.
I would welcome
But the only way we would go through with it is if you pull Cal in. That would probably be a stipulation.
that might kill
That
it,
might be
honestly.
why they're doing that too. And you're getting a footprint in the state of California.
Well,
I think Cal's tied closer to UCLA than it would be tied to Stanford. I mean, they're both geographically located. They're both probably the top 2 schools in academically. It's definitely traditionally in the conference, but I don't think there's an actual tie. And I know the big game, but that doesn't necessarily have to go away. Just like the fact that
Right.
USC still plays Notre Dame out of conference, so that's not going to be a huge issue. But Cal, the problem with Cal is they've just been so bad. I mean, if this conversation had happened 20 years ago,
Oh my
Cal
God.
was one of the better programs in the country with Aaron Rodgers,
Marshawn
Lynch, Derod Cherry, all the we know all the offensive guys. They had great defense. They had linebackers. They were putting guys in the NFL. If anyone do their research, anyone knows their NFL. You just look back at the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Cal was cranking it out, and traditionally, just over the years. But they've just made Justin Wilcox has had some great defenses, but overall, those Cal teams have been their offenses have just been horrendous, and they've been the bottom of the barrel in Pac-12.
yeah, they didn't keep
Isn't that
up.
crazy how things change like that? Like, I can specifically remember what you're talking about because it was my early 20s whenever that, Cal had Aaron Rodgers, Marshawn Lynch, and all those NFL caliber talent. And now it's like, no way. There's no way those guys went to Cal. Yeah, they actually did. A lot of teams go through, ups and downs, and Cal is in a super, super down right now.
Yeah, well, if you go back 15, 20 years, when USC had their best team they've had in a long time, the only teams that would beat USC was definitely not the SEC, definitely not the Big Ten. There were 2 conferences, the Pac-12, who basically, killed a couple of chances at titles for USC and Pete Carroll. Teams like Oregon State, who no one really gave credit for. Again, a school has done more with less than anyone I've known in my lifetime of watching football. And then you also had the Big 12.
My point is, I think Cal, if they did come to the Big 12, it would regenerate all their fans back and they would have more excitement.
If they're not
To the
excited
program.
right now in the Pac-12 or the past 10 years, I don't see how that would make a difference. I mean, maybe they would be excited that they didn't get left out in the cold, but they're in a conference where they play teams that they like to play. So as far as like regenerating the fan base, the only thing that's going to do that is winning. Going to a new conference is not going to reinvigorate a dead fan base. They have to start winning if that fan base is to come alive.
Yeah, and I'm
that's
worried
what
about
hurts
Cal.
anybody's
I mean,
feelings.
I agree with
Cal's
that.
not going to travel to Ames, Iowa, or Manhattan, Kansas, and
Yeah.
playing
Yeah.
11 o'clock in the morning games. Their fans are not going to travel for that.
Right.
Well, 11 o'clock at Ames is what, like 5 in the morning? No, I'm kidding. It's not that bad, but in California.
Well, see, but what I worry about Cal, because there were teams like Oregon and Washington and Stanford to a degree early on that took advantage of the fact that the NCAA sanctions at the beginning of the last decade.
Right.
Where was Cal during that? They didn't take advantage of that opportunity.
Yeah.
And again, I wonder if we're talking about all this realignment. We might still be because of money, but if Peterson hadn't left Washington, and again, I'm just saying it again. Let's say I hope I don't have a broken record like last week, but we're bagging on the Pac-12, but they were like three that for some reason. Where are my Duck fans? Where are my Duck friends? For some reason that's a stepping stone. I don't know why Oregon can't keep its coaches, but it can't. But
that is weird. That is weird. And to your point earlier, USC has not been very good over the past few years, and Washington has had their down years, and all the good teams that can get those good coaches, they have their down years. And the problem with Cal is they were never able to take advantage of those down years when those teams, whenever you're, even my team, West Virginia, if you're a second tier team like a West Virginia, if there's other teams that are, blue bloods at an elite level and they're having a down time, you have to take advantage of that, because whenever they get back on top, you're screwed.
Would Cal be better if they still had Tedford, or was Tedford the problem when he left?
I don't know what happened with Tedford. I really wish I did. I didn't really. I don't really remember what happened there, because he did tail off. It's just like anything, though. You know what I mean? It could be just coordinators, right? Because we give a lot of props to all the head coaches, but let's face it. There aren't many Nick Sabans out there. I mean, why we see Nick Saban just ride this thing for a whole 15 years, and how Pete Carroll, we're enough until the very end, was able to keep it going, is because when you lose a coordinator, if you can fill that position with someone as good or better, that's how Saban has done it. I mean, let's face it, Saban's been taking head coaches, top names in offense. 2 USC head coaches became offensive coordinators at Alabama to help him on this run. So if you're able to get that, like I'm going to be watching Clemson. I'm pulling for Clemson, but they lost 2 really good coordinators. Now Jordan Bowman told me that the name escapes me, but they had a guy for the offense that was kind of in the wings that might have been doing a lot for Tony Elliott that people don't know about behind the scenes, but he's confident in that. But it's gonna be hard to replace a Brett Venables. But I don't put it past Dabo. Maybe he does have that. Maybe he does have it going. But we give a lot of credit to head coaches when in reality they just have really good coordinators. Do you know what I mean?
That
a really good
is
coordinator
a
can
big
make
one.
an okay coach look good. But going back to my point really quick before I shut up.
I will be back. I'm going to go check out the 365. They had a breaking news thing that just flashed up, and I'll come back and let y'all know what it was about.
I'm actually looking at that right now real quick.
There were 3 head coaching decisions that screwed the Pac-12, and that's why, again, Jimmy Lake, bad hire. They didn't know Peterson was dropping out. He dropped out. Then you have USC with the Helton rehiring, right? And then you have the what's the third one?
Larry Scott being an idiot.
Well, that started the whole decade. But we probably could have survived Larry Scott if USC and Washington made better hires. That's really what it comes down to.
That's what it comes down to. You're right. I think there's going to be an announcement as far as Pac-12 teams being accepted into the Big 12 is what's going on over there. My guess would be Colorado and Arizona because that's what I've been hearing over the past week or so. It was just the timing of when it's going to be released. So, yeah, I expect in the next 24 hours, maybe in the next couple hours, that the Big 12 is going to announce that Arizona and Colorado have been accepted into the Big 12. So expect that news to break any minute now, to be honest
I would
with
say
you.
that of the entire Pac-12, as much as it's maligned, those are the last. I mean, those two schools aren't really going to help. And to me, the fact that they're joining alone is almost a bad signal that Oregon and Washington may have other plans and Utah even, because those are the three. You know, I don't know what much value is for basketball, big time basketball add, but beyond for football, that's not adding much. And T-Duck, I just saw your comment. Feel free to join us and tell me how I'm wrong about how Oregon has had an opportunity over the past 10 years to do something. And for whatever reason, your head coaches just tend to leave. I'm not sure what you mean by my arrogance. I think I was giving you a pretty objective view of what's going on in the Pac-12, but feel free to join us and let me know the error of my ways. I would love to hear it.
Thank you, Cyclone Steve, for the $2 donation. He says, my brother rolling out of bed for 9 a.m. games on TV. Yeah, that's what some of these teams are going to be looking at for sure.
I have respect for Oregon as a program. Like, they've really had some good success. But these Oregon fans walk around like they're the big thing. Like, I like Oregon. They have fun jerseys. I enjoyed the Chip Kelly and Mark Helfrich offenses.
Fun jerseys.
But these teams really just, like, Oregon's not a blue blood. They just aren't.
Yeah, and we're not trash talking Oregon. It's
not at all.
They've done great. It's like they project to be something, and it's almost like an onion. You keep peeling stuff. You're like, Oregon's not what I thought they were, because they're good at selling themselves.
Yeah,
I got to give Oregon credit. They are very, very good at selling themselves. But when you peel back the onion and you realize exactly what they're selling, you're like, wait, they're acting like they're a blue blood. They're not a blue blood.
Like, I would put Oregon at the same tier as West Virginia, honestly.
Yep.
That's a program.
The only thing, maybe the only thing that would make Oregon better would be national interest. I don't think West Virginia has the national interest as Oregon for whatever reason. And see, this tells me that Oregon has been doing something right, because even though they're not a blue blood brand, they somehow get the nation to talk about them year after year after year.
Well, and the other thing with Oregon is the facilities are phenomenal.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. I'm going to restate what I said. I'm not a very concise human being, but I'll try my best. They have done a great job. I'm saying they were given a lot. They had the opportunity. You got USC on sanctions. You got Stanford was sliding. You've got, Cal completely out of the picture. Washington with Jimmy Lake hire. It was set. Literally, you could not have had a better situation for Oregon to be the cream of the crop. And Oregon is a bigger brand than USC. Then how come USC is in the Big Ten and Oregon's trying to find a conference, Mr. Waffle? Explain that one to me. I've been told for the better part of a decade how USC's trash. They're nothing. Yet when one of the premier conferences says, we need a match Texas and Oklahoma, grab USC.
Yeah.
The
So
bottom line is, if Oregon was a bigger
comment.
brand than USC, they would have got invited over USC. So that right there deletes that fact.
Well, the funny
Well, it's
thing
not a fact. It was just an opinion. But no, they're not.
The
They've
funny
had
thing
more
with the
success
Pac-12
recently because not because they've been really, really good. It's just because USC's been really, really bad. But the brand itself, USC is head and shoulders above Oregon. It's not even close. It's not an argument.
And
Well,
it's not about how USC or Oregon. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
If you notice the Pac-12, and this is going back to the 70s, the 80s, and even part of the 90s, if USC is rolling, then recruits will start going to Stanford and Cal. It helps recruiting at the other schools, because kids still want to stay close to home because they're drawing more attendance and they're getting on TV more and they're playing bigger games. But when USC's down, then honestly, the rest of the conference kind of falls apart as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you're seeing that again. You know what? That's a good point, because remember what I was saying about Cal and the Pac-12 schools and how they were the only ones beating USC. Well, when USC was good, that was good. When USC fell off, look what happened to the conference. So there might be a lot to what you just said.
I think Washington is kind of the phenomenal where it doesn't matter how the other schools. Washington usually can compete and usually get some players. But the other schools, it just seems like if USC is down, then they're going to be down.
T-Duck.
He
says, how did Oregon get to 2 national title games if they are trash? What are you?
Nobody's saying they're trash.
No, nobody said they were trash. What are you talking about?
No.
What we're saying is USC is the better brand. That's why they got invited to the Big Ten. And I literally said that USC has been down and Oregon has been better.
And USC's been to 3 title games in the past this decade, and they won 2 of the 3. So,
and just to say, it's not. I would say that USC is the bigger brand. I don't know that I'd say it's better right now. Oregon's a very high-powered brand, but USC is still bigger.
When USC is doing well, they're a bigger brand than the Rams, John. It's just
true. That's true.
Said, but we appreciate
they just won the Super Bowl, so I don't know you guys.
The reality is Oregon is Nike U, yes, and USC is in LA, okay? And second tier to Aaron Donald and the Rams, only because they just won the Super Bowl. If USC wins a national championship, that argument flips.
Yeah.
I think you guys should understand, though, John Waffle is an expert on that quote. Being a Pitt fan in Pittsburgh, Pitt is always second to Pittsburgh.
The Steelers. Well, I think
and West Virginia. West Virginia carries the Pitt TV market over Pitt. Seriously.
If you go back to the Pete Carroll days, USC was outdrawing the whatever it was team that was in LA in the NFL.
We didn't. That's just it. Hold on a second. We didn't have an NFL team. That helps. That's why we had 93,000 packing.
Okay, so that was but I was thinking back when you guys had the Raiders for a while, they weren't drawing anybody compared to USC and UCLA.
Correct, that's true. In the early, in the 80s, and that's why they left. That's why the Rams. You're right. So that part is true. We basically because USC was, but you know what? Here's one thing.
That was the Ted Tollner era, though. That was Ted Tollner and Larry Smith era. Like
it was Larry Smith and John Robinson. They left when John Robinson was a coach, and ironically. But it's just because it's not much that USC was doing well. It's just that those franchises like Georgia won, and it's a long story. I hate that woman. I'm not even going to go there. What she did to the LA Rams. I mean, but anyway, it's true. The USC is going to struggle, but I don't see the Rams with this. They're doing great right now, but it's the NFL, and just because you're doing well. So as the Rams come down to earth, you know what I mean. When LeBron leaves, all those bandwagoners are going to come back into the fold. And it's again, when you have a city that's full of transplants, which Los Angeles is, as much as all the people around the world say that LA sucks, there's a hell of a lot of you guys here. I mean, I was born and raised here, but listen, people I've worked with are from Ohio State, from Purdue. I mean, they're from all over the place. And my neighbors, I go to the beach, they're all from all over. But this city is a weird city in the fact that there are great fans here, but there's a lot of you guys here in my city, and so they're not all USC fans. They didn't grow up Boomer Sooner, they didn't grow up that way. They're
missing one big fact. They're missing one big fact. Winning cures all.
Yeah.
So I agree with this comment that the Rams are a better brand right now. They just won the Super Bowl and USC went 4-8. But Lincoln Riley comes in. If they have a 10-win season, USC's brand is going to be much higher. They're going to be interested. And it helps that they have 2 separate stadiums now and that they're renovating the Coliseum. USC has a home all to themselves. When you have to share a stadium with an NFL team, it does hurt a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I mean, ask Pitt fans. They already know. That sucks for them. Same for Miami. That hurts. So, yeah, right now, the Rams have the better brand because they just won the Super Bowl. But winning cures all. USC starts doing well, they're going to be the better brand.
Yeah, USC put $319 million into the Coliseum, and it is theirs. We shared it with the Rams this time around. Before, we used to share it with the Raiders as a home, back in the 80s or 90s. But
And
the Rams are only here for
the Rams.
Yeah, and the Rams, and at one time the Bruins actually too. They played here as well.
Yep.
But this is just for a short time till they got SoFi, and that's all settled out right now.
Well, something that you guys were talking about earlier, and I just wanted to comment on it. The problem with Utah and some of these other programs like Oregon is that we've kind of seen where their ceiling is because they pretty well hit it in Utah and Oregon. Oregon not last year, Utah last year. Oregon, back when they had Mariota and so forth, they were really at the ceiling of where they could go. You look at USC, the ceiling, you can say, oh, Pete Carroll days, it hit the ceiling. Hey, the ceiling's got
a high ceiling.
Its ceiling's even gotten higher because of all the new people and all that and this expansion of LA, and so, but the reality is, if you really want to look at how do you know the value of Oregon? Well, you go back and look. When they were at the top of their game, where were they and how many people did they draw? You know the potential. But you look at something like Arizona State, I don't really know that they've ever gotten close to their potential, and you could say the same thing about Colorado. I mean, you have to go back to the 90s to see when they hit their ceiling, and it's a different ballgame now. So, yeah. It's
you have to compare what you're saying is you have to compare apples to apples. You have to look at the viewership of Oregon when they're at their top and then look at the viewership of USC when they were at the top. And I guarantee you that the USC viewership was not just higher, but much higher because not only can they draw in the market of LA, but there's a lot of USC fans in the city of San Diego, and that's a large TV market as well. And I know they have San Diego State, but when USC is good, there's a lot of USC fans in the city of San Diego.
There's a lot of USC fans and alumni in all the major cities. New York, again. Right. I think you saw the video of Navy Harbor in Chicago. It's just packed. They're out there. But to be fair,
there's no Oregon fans outside of like the West Coast. Like they just aren't there as much. I mean, you may see like one or two, but
I would agree with that because even being not just where I live, like I go all over the East Coast. I've been from Florida all the way up to Massachusetts, all the way, Kentucky. I mean, regularly I'm talking about. And Oregon's brand is not very prominent here. You'll see one, like when you see an Oregon sticker or somebody wearing Oregon, like I go up to them because it's like, oh, that's an endangered species over here on the East Coast. I got to go talk to them. And that's no knock on Oregon, but it just means you're not as national of a brand as Oregon. I see USC stuff around here all the time. It's just how it is. It's not something that you're talking down on somebody about. It's just how things are.
T-Duck, you just said that Oregon ceiling is the national title games. So I agree with you, but you got to win. You got to get over that hump. You got to win it. I mean, to be fair to Oregon and to be fair to ASU, ASU with Jake Plummer, I don't know, in the early 90s, whatever it was, in that Rose Bowl was it Ohio State? They were like a player or two away from winning the national championship. They won that Rose Bowl. They got it. Oregon, there was a controversial call. Was he down? Was he not down? Otherwise, we're talking maybe Oregon won a national championship at the beginning of the century. So, I mean,
Tim, breaking news. John Waffle, H2P. I don't know any USC alumni. Never seen a fan. That's breaking news.
You saw one, buddy. Right here. Here's one.
Hey, guys.
There's a few of us, John.
You need to get out more, buddy. You need to get out more.
Hey, guys. I'm going to get off of here. We're having a party. And the party's about ready to start. I just got my temporary residency.
You are
today.
excused.
So, awesome. Congratulations.
I can now be half Mexican.
There you go.
Hey.
But hey,
that's excusable. You're excused. Appreciate you coming on, though, buddy.
All right, man. Bye.
Have fun.
Man. Yeah, John's got some good stuff, man. I love talking to that guy.
Oh yeah, definitely. He texts me and messages me, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about. I love it when he comes on. And going back to the ceiling of Oregon was getting to the national championship game. Even if they win the national championship, that's not necessarily what we're talking about. We're talking about, okay, even if they were to win, you would have to compare that viewership to whenever USC wins it.
Like Washington won a national championship in 1991, but like Washington's not a big program right now.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
It's
but
bigger than you
He's
think.
a good coach.
But you guys, they were in the national champ. They were in the playoffs in 2017. Will, I mean, it's not. We're not talking ancient history here. And again, that shows you what. See, there's programs. There's programs like Alabama, like Ohio. Well, Ohio State is always good. You know, like.
Oh, by the way, my brother's in the chat. He's going to Blue Bro. What's up, buddy?
Shout out to family.
There's certain programs that if they have the right coach, they're going to win. Right? Oklahoma, Alabama, USC. Miami, you know, there's certain schools we know if you put the right coach in there, they're if not winning national championships, they're going to be in the hunt for national championships. Then there's some schools where if you have a generational coach, they're going to win a national championship. But you don't have to be an amazing coach to win a national championship. For instance, I'll throw one out here at LSU. You don't have to be a great head coach. You could have some of the craziest, weirdest coaches of all time. But if you go to LSU and you get that LSU talent, you're going to win a national championship.
Ed Orgeron.
And I was also thinking about the grass eater as well. I mean, so they've had their they've had some nutty, interesting coaches that you know or one hit wonders.
Yeah.
But those are the programs.
Les Miles. That's who we're thinking of.
Les Miles, yeah.
Yeah, and to your point, Ed Orgeron was just able to get the talent because LSU recruits at a high level in the SEC, won a national championship, had one of the greatest teams offensively of all time, but then flops the next year and he was fired after a contract extension. So, yeah, that tells you even a bad coach can go to LSU and win a national championship. And that's why I think Brian Kelly will win a national championship at LSU. I think he's a better coach than Ed Orgeron.
Oh,
now, that's not me saying that Brian Kelly's
you better get your head down.
Coach, one of the all-time greatest, but he's good enough to win one at LSU.
Yeah.
The thing is that Brian Kelly doesn't fire like bad coaches though, so he's always going to have like one or two positions where the players just aren't going to be that good because he's friends with that position coach. So they're going to be held back. Like they're going to be held back in the O-line or the secondary, and they'll be exposed even if they do make the playoff.
Wow.
Who are you talking about?
Del Alexander and Jeff Quinn were awful for Notre Dame.
Well, going back to LSU and our conversation earlier, you know, you could be a good coach with great coordinators. We saw that with Joe Brady, and we saw that with a generational quarterback. It made Ed Orgeron and LSU unstoppable. That offense was as good as any offense I've seen since probably 2005 USC, in my opinion. There've been some great ones as well, but just stacked with numbers and ability. It's about as high. I'm sure there's some that I can't think off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a couple of Alabamas and Ohio States in there as well. They're pretty sick.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't get any better than that Joe Brady offense that was going on that year. And so if you have the right coordinator, you can make a good.
Hey, Tim, you got an echo going on, buddy. I don't know what happened.
Something's echoing.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out.
Is it me?
It just started like a few minutes ago. I don't know how.
Hold on, mute. It's me. Hold on, I'm gonna mute.
Is it?
Yeah, it was Tim.
It was Tim.
He was good for a while. I don't know what happened. Yeah, it was you, Tim. Sorry, buddy.
Huh. You know,
yeah, that was weird.
I got to say, I don't think. I mean, I know what you guys are saying about Brian Kelly being at LSU, but honestly, are you saying Notre Dame didn't have talent? I mean, it sure seems like they had some pretty talented kids over there.
Yeah, but a lot of them weren't well coached, and he also, like, Brian Kelly wasn't a recruiter himself. Like, Brian Kelly didn't go out and recruit the best kids that Notre Dame
Hold on. You have to realize, as a Notre Dame fan, Notre Dame doesn't have the recruiting advantages that you think. I actually think that Brian Kelly recruited well at Notre Dame, and that's why I think if Notre Dame were to join like the Big Ten, or I know they would never join the SEC, but if they were to join the SEC, something like that, and bring in, you know, the big bucks like that, because NIL is going to play a major factor. Notre Dame does not make a lot from NBC. I actually think that Notre Dame has made the most out of a bad situation with that contract for NBC. This is not 1988 anymore, okay? This is early 2020s. So if Notre Dame can get that $75 million a year payout, then you're going to see more talent at Notre Dame. Well, so I think Brian Kelly did well at Notre Dame as far as how he had to recruit.
But you got to compare Brian Kelly to where Marcus Freeman is doing. Marcus Freeman is using what Notre Dame, the high academic seat that these players have to have, and he's using it as an advantage. Like, we're going to be tougher, mentally tougher than other players because we're going to be working so hard.
I got to see what happens on the field first before I make that judgment.
Well, no, I'm saying recruiting-wise, just recruiting. Like, look at,
he's recruited better than Brian Kelly.
Yes, he's number 2. We're number 2 in the country right now in recruiting.
Yeah, but it's still early. I got to see the final rankings and
but
how
even if we land like this one guy that we think we're going to get, we're already this top class on the 24/7 score is going to be higher than any class that Brian Kelly's had. Just Marcus Freeman first.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Now we got to see if that translates to wins on the field, though.
This is why I think it will translate to wins on the field.
Right.
It takes a couple.
Like Marcus Freeman hired better coaches than Brian Kelly did. He didn't just hang out, hire coaches that Brian Kelly likes to play golf with. These guys actually know how to coach. They're from great programs.
Now, that's a good argument. He might have a better coaching staff than Brian Kelly. That might be a good argument. But I was going by, all the issues that Notre Dame has as far as academics and all that stuff. I thought that Brian Kelly put some competitive teams out there, especially if you look at Notre Dame before Brian Kelly. If you look at the coaches before Brian Kelly, between Lou Holtz and Brian Kelly, Notre Dame had some bad coaches, some bad hires, and Brian Kelly just kind of brought them out of that well. So you might actually be seeing Marcus Freeman benefiting from that, something that's building. So we'll see if that's sustainable and see if it translates to wins on the field. Because you got to realize where Notre Dame was whenever Brian Kelly became the head coach. They were not in a good spot. But him leaving, they are in a good spot. So that's one advantage that Marcus Freeman has that Brian Kelly didn't have.
But the thing is, Brian Kelly, like when he first got to Notre Dame, he recruited hard. Like he was a good recruiter from 2010 to about 2012. But after that national championship game, like it's like he stopped trying to recruit. Like the recruiting just wasn't at that level that it was. And
again, did he have different coaches too, right? When you lose that recruiting is a very dynamic thing. Like we had T. Martin. Is my still echoing? Yeah, it is. Never mind.
I don't hear it.
No. Okay. Well, when we had T. Martin, we were recruiting amazing. We lose
Shooter,
that guy.
Shooter, you're echoing.
Is it? Oh, is it? So the issue is that when he left, it hurt. But they made a mistake. They made a mistake. We want to keep a recruiter, and they made him the offensive coordinator. When they made him the offensive coordinator, that's when our offense went to shit. So they get rid of him, but then when they got rid of him, then they lost all that recruiting. So, with Brian Kelly, it may be effort, but also might be the fact that they may have lost some guys on staff. You'd probably know better than me that were your better coordinators. And the problem is sometimes you have great coaches that develop well. Sometimes you have great recruiters that recruit well. Very rarely do you have both. And when you have both, like at schools, again, we're going to name them over and over again, at Alabama and at Georgia, when you have great coordinators and great people that can recruit and develop, that's when you have these great teams.
Yeah, I agree with that. Guys, we're running up on 2 hours. I got to do some stuff. It's getting to be that time. I'm about to wrap it up, but I wanted to get this comment, even though it's not a super chat. I thought it was a good comment. The Panther Room says, I hope to see you at the Backyard Brawl. I always enjoy the channel. Should be a great game. H2P, yes, sir. Just email me, and I'll answer it, and we'll try to find each other, and maybe we'll tailgate, because I'm going to be at the Backyard Brawl for sure. All right. Time to wrap it up. So I'm going to go around the room, give everybody their last word. Will, Notre Dame fan, last word, buddy.
I mean, I think Tim made a great point because we had people like Matt LaFleur on the staff at Notre Dame at the beginning of the Kelly era. And also the Jets head coach, Robert Saleh, and they all hated Brian Kelly and they all left. So I definitely think that
all valid points. Good job, buddy. Thank you. Tim, last word, buddy.
Yeah, again, I'll be the first one to echo. I'm very pleased and feel really good about joining the Big Ten. But again, my whole life's been the Pac-12, and I just think people are sleeping on some of these programs.
I would agree with that.
Anybody
it
who
will
ends
be
up
some
with Oregon,
adjustment because going from east to west is easier travel than going from going from east to west is easier than going from west to east because you're losing time. So I do think the first couple of years is going to be an adjustment, but you guys are a high brand. I'm worried about UCLA though.
yeah, well, who cares about them? UCLA is UCLA. But any conference that's going to get the Pacific Northwest schools in Oregon and Washington, and anyone that gets it, and people sleeping on Utah. I mean, again, just like Oregon State, those programs that do more with less. But I think that Utah is positioned better where they are, Corvallis compared to Salt Lake City. That
Right.
Utah also is a very valuable program, and I'm just saying, yes, are they Georgia, Alabama? No, but who is? Even you people over in the SEC land, even a lot of the Big Ten people that are up there and these highfalutin ideas like you're the greatest thing ever. Nobody is on their level right now. Just like, again, no one was on Miami in the early 2000s. So I mean, these things change. But what doesn't change is good football and good football programs, good football fans, and big cities like Salt Lake, Portland, and Seattle. So I think anyone gets them is lucky.
I agree, buddy. Thank you for coming on. Don't be a stranger. Shooter, what's going on, man? Last word.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, I think Tim mentioned it earlier, but if we do end up picking up Colorado and Arizona, because he was saying, well, that may not be such a great deal just getting those two. But what it does is then it forces the Pac-8. They have to expand, and then they're going to add San Diego State and Boise State, and then their media numbers are going to drop even further, and it's just going to that'll be the dam break. But anyway, yeah, we're in the same spot we were last week. It looks like these two are imminent, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Exactly. Good job, buddy. Thank you.
All right, man.
Yeah, I'm actually expecting it to be announced that Colorado and Arizona are going to be members of the Big 12 shortly. That's what we're all waiting on. We've heard that they've applied and the Big 12 is going to accept them. It's just a matter of time. So we'll see. But I'm not sure about Washington, Oregon, but if they do apply to the Big 12, they will get in as well. And I've said it before. I've said it again. Miami is too big of a brand for people to not take them seriously. So if ESPN and the ACC do renegotiate that TV deal and make it easier to leave because of the grant of rights, and the SEC and the Big Ten show no interest in Miami, come on to the Big 12. I think you'd be a great addition. Obviously, geography doesn't really matter. And from what I'm hearing, Miami fans would be just fine with that, and I think they would be competitive. Shout out to everybody that watched the show today. We had a great turnout. Everybody that commented in the comments section. Listen, just commenting, just hitting the thumbs up, all that helps grow the video. So on your way out, if you haven't hit the thumbs up, please do so, because even though we won't be live anymore, it will be replayed. And the more likes this video has, the more it will be suggested. So keep that in mind on your way out. Even though we won't be live anymore, hit the thumbs up and it helps the video. So, yeah. Thanks to all those that super chatted. And we have one more, by the way, actually. David Cummings, thank you for the $2 donation. Says, shout out to Uncle Lou. He's the man. Yeah, we actually did a softball game on Saturday. It was awesome and amazing. Unfortunately, well, me and Lou were on different teams. He was on Team Raj and I was on Team Fulls. We did lose by 1 point. It was a walk-off home run by Team Raj, but it was still a great game. But me and the captain, we talked about a small fielding change for next year, and I think it will be significant. I think it will pay off. There was a few things that I saw, so there's one change we're going to make, and I think we'll come off the victor next year. But yes, shout out to Uncle Lou for putting that together. Pigskin Pete, great competition. Anthony Zappin, thank you for the $5 donation on the way out. Says, let's go Mountaineers. Absolutely. Sometimes I don't say that enough. Let's go Mountaineers. And I can't wait for the backyard brawl. About slipped up and did a tongue twister right there. The backyard brawl. Very excited about that. September 1st. And we have a goal of getting to 10,000 subscribers by September 1st. We already broke 9,000 subscribers. Last check, we are at 9,079. So if you're not subscribed to Golden Blue Dude and you're a college football fan, what are you waiting on? This is all we do here. Now, if you're not a college football fan, then I don't even know what you're doing here. But if you are, hit the subscribe button. Let's go. Let's get to 10,000. All right. I'll do another live show tomorrow, but I don't know what time. That's why it's important to hit the notification, because I don't have a schedule. Real life happens. Whenever I tried to schedule, I always had to end up rescheduling. So hit the notification and you'll know what time I do it tomorrow. But for today, that's the end of the show, and I'll see you tomorrow.